And now I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar titled Ransomware Attacks Are on the Rise. Are you ready? In just a moment, I'm going to hand things over to our featured presenter today, Ruth Capizone. Ruth has over 22 years of hands-on and training experience in information technology and cybersecurity, and she's successfully worked with top-tier companies and organizations over the years. She's currently a senior technical instructor at VMware, specializing in threat hunting using various Carbon Black tools and technology. And we're extremely honored to have Ruth speak to us this morning. Ruth, you now have the floor.
Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Ransomware Attacks Are on the Rise. Are you ready? Is your organization ready? Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to tell you a little bit about myself and what we're getting ready to cover in regards to Carbon Black. So my name, again, is Ruth Capizone. I'm a senior technical trainer. I'm out here in the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C. I have several technical certs, a few instructor certs, and my hobbies are food, primarily eating it, as it's probably showing, COVID 15, 20, 30, and so on. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about ransomware and exactly what it is. So ransomware is a type of malware. Okay, it's a type of malware that gets on a system where we encrypt your critical files, and in order for you to get it back, you have to pay a fee. Okay, whether it be cash, what they've been doing lately, the attacks out there, is crypto. Okay, so what we're looking for, let me get my laser pointer here, and let's take a look at a pattern of attack. So users. Okay, users are our weakest link, they usually are. They'll launch, say, Outlook. And perhaps within their Outlook, they've got a few attachments. So it could be Word, Adobe Acrobat, and so on. Let's just say they happen to launch Word saying, hey, here's an important message from your senior manager. They click on Word, which then launches a script, which then launches the malware. So here's an example. There's a malicious download. A user may inadvertently launch it. It runs, it encrypts your critical files, and now you've got a ransomware email. Okay. So how do we protect ourselves? Okay, how do we protect ourselves? And there's 4 Carbon Black products that I want to cover with you. Okay. The first is app control. Okay, app control, matter of fact, of the 4 tools I'm getting ready to talk about, 2 are what I consider to be proactive and 2 are what I consider to be reactive. We've got both sides. We've got red team, we've got blue team. We have penetration testing a little bit and incident responding. Okay, so we're going to start out with app control. This is our proactive tool. Let me tell you a little bit about this. This is actually really neat. Okay, so what happens without app control? So we have a user, again, with our scenario earlier, they go on the internet, they could do a drive-by download. A drive-by download, they don't even have to click on anything. All they need to do is just visit a site and it's on the system. Or they perhaps may have clicked on something within their email that, as we saw earlier, runs in the environment. So without app control, we could have all kinds of system errors, worms, malware, viruses, and so on. With app control, okay, we're able to control that. And I want to talk about how in just a second. So here's app control. Here's what we call our endpoint. So we have the ability to protect Windows systems, desktops and servers, Mac and Linux systems, and yes, including Debian. Okay. We have an on-prem server that we do deploy. Hold on, I've got something for you cloud aficionados. Okay. So we have a server that's on-prem. This is a CentOS server. And then we have something called Carbon Black Collective Defense Cloud. This is where we do all of our analytics, threat hunting, threat modeling, and so on. So how do these products work? Well, the first thing we need to do is to install a sensor, okay? We install a sensor on the endpoint, which installs something called a policy. So what happens first is when the sensor is installed, it starts taking an inventory of everything that's on the system. We call that the initialization phase. it sends the information it finds over to the server. What happens next is the thing of beauty. If we enable this, I've worked with large governmental organizations that do not allow communication to the web, okay? So let's just say we do. What happens is this server does the initialization, writes it into a SQL Server database, and then reports their information over to our Carbon Black Collective Defense Cloud. Now, who is the Collective Defense Cloud? We have some very intelligent, hardworking engineers that are constantly scanning the threat landscape, so they know what's out there, okay? So then the server writes their information there, sends it over to the servers, to the cloud, and says, you know what? What do you know about these files? It does it by sending hashes, okay? The defense cloud says, hey, here's what I know. And then we as administrators can make a decision on whether or not we're going to allow this to run or not run in the environment. Now, there's different modes, okay? When we set up our policy, there's different enforcement modes. We have low enforcement mode. This is allow anything the user has to run in the environment unless we explicitly ban it. That's low enforcement, which I'm going to show you. We have medium enforcement, which says, well, let's give a user a choice. If they want to run it, they can run it. If not, then no. That, in my brain, does not compute. I do not like giving users choices. Okay? I prefer high enforcement mode, but it's not about me. It depends on the environment. High enforcement mode says nothing's going to run. If it's not already on the system, it's not going to run. Users, if you need something to run on your system, you can request approval. I'll show it to you. Okay, so let me show you a quick demo. Okay, so here's an example of our app control. Okay, so here's our console. What I want to show you is, I'm going to go into my desktop. What does it look like without app control? So say we want to, this is a user, they want to install Slack. Or let's try 7-zip. Look at that. They're able to install it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, maybe not. This is any new applications that the user tries to install will be blocked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to rules. And as you can see, we have a lot of options up here. So I'm going to go to rules, policies, and take a look at this. And it's kind of thinking up here. We're actually teaching classes, so we're kind of sharing the environment here. So we have some default policies. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new one. I'll call this one our demo policy. And just let me briefly go over our options. Visibility is like a video camera. It doesn't stop anything from running in the environment. Okay. Whereas control, one of my favorites, I could say, look, the enforcement level is high enforcement that says anything that is not approved is blocked, like ransomware. Okay. I'm going to click save. The policy is doing nothing until I assign it to an asset or an endpoint. Now, the endpoint is going to be the system that I'm working on now. Okay. You guys, take a look at this. You see where it says the current policy is just the initial install, which means everything can be installed. Anything that the user installs can be installed. We're going to change that. Okay. So over here on the right-hand side, you can see the initial install says all we're going to do is just watch like a video camera. Okay. But I'm going to change that. I'm going to say, you know what? I want to change that policy to the demo policy. Save it. And now I just want to double check to make sure that the demo policy has been applied. Right there. Perfect. Now take a look at this. Give it a few seconds. Let's make sure that's there. There we go. Now it's ready. Takes about maybe about 5-10 seconds to apply. Okay. So let's try this Slack. There we go. So I double clicked on Slack. It says, you know what? Or any other application, anything that's not already there. It says this is blocked. Why? Because it's an unapproved file. Okay. So it says here Carbon Black protection or app control. It used to be called Carbon Black protection. Now it's called app control. Has blocked an attempt to run Slack. Please contact your administrator if you want approval. So what I can do as a user is say, hey, I need this for my job. Because you know the user's going to say, and I need it stat. I need it right now. So they could put in the email address. This next thing is optional. Okay. Click submit. Again, they still can't launch anything that has not been approved. You guys see that? So anything I'm running in here, Wireshark, will not get approved. But again, if they need it for their job, here's what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. Let me go back here. So if I go into tools, you see there's an option here for us administrators that reads approval requests. Now within here, I can wait a few seconds and it'll show up here that this user is requesting this application to be installed. Okay. So app control is proactive. It says, you know what, anything that has not been approved. So what we do, and it's actually a thing of beauty, you guys, look at this. I'm only going over just a few of the options. One of the things in cyber that we usually do is we set up a baseline. We're saying, hey, here's the minimum level of security, the minimum applications that we want installed in our environment. And then what we do is we track changes. Well, this here will say, you know what, here's the baseline. Anything new that the user wants to install is going to be blocked if we choose high enforcement, which is my preference and most of our clients' preferences. If they want something, they can ask for approval. But baseline drift says, you know what, how far have we drifted from the baseline and what's the risk of us remaining at that drift level? Okay. So here's what I recommend with app control. You set up a policy. Block anything that hasn't been explicitly approved. Then what I recommend is that you go in and set up software rules where we go in and we do tweaking. Okay, so we want our policies to be all encompassing, that we go in and do small tweaks for different departments and so on. If you want to know what those small tweaks, which is an amazing part of this product, go ahead and attend our app control class. Highly recommend it. Okay, so that's being proactive. But you know what? Never say never. Never say never that ransomware or any other type of malware will get past this product. Let's just say in the rare case that something does get past app control, it's rare. What do we do now? We have a solution for that, and it's called Enterprise EDR. This is our incident response. Let's catch it and stop it from spreading type of tool. So let's talk about this now. So what is EDR? The first thing that we do is we install an agent on the endpoint, very similar to what we do in app control. And it gives us visibility. It is like a video camera. So if someone were to go into a grocery store, or even me, go into a grocery store and buy all kind of sweets and stuff like that, but I check out and have an uneventful trip. A video camera is going to record that. So if someone were to walk in and say, and start shoplifting, the video camera is going to record that as well. What our job is with this product is to filter out the bad. We're looking for something going wrong in this environment, okay? But again, this endpoint or this software that we call a sensor, it's like a video camera. It allows us to detect what's going on in the environment without signatures, huge. We look at something called TTPs. You see where it reads here, TTPs. There's our tactics, techniques, and procedures. Now we're used to your signature-based antivirus software that says, you know what, here's a pattern that we're looking for. If you see that pattern, throw up an alert. What I'm finding, again, I've been in the industry for 22 years. I got into IT on a dare, and I'm so happy that they dared me to do this. I just love what I do. But when I got into IT, the name of the game was malware, viruses, and so on. You guys, it's not the same. It's not the same as it was when I started 22 years ago. The name of the game is to use approved applications against itself. For example, if you're using Windows, PowerShell is a good one, okay? So we don't look at patterns, although we can. I'll show you in the third product I'm gonna cover shortly. But we look at behavior, the heuristics. We're like, ooh, PowerShell normally doesn't act in this manner. Let me throw up an alert and do a few other things. Okay, so we do it without signatures. We look at behaviors, we look at tactics, techniques, and procedures so that we can respond accordingly. Those of you guys who are in incident response to the blue team, we have a big decision to make. Like if an alert comes in, is it a false positive or do we declare an incident? Okay, declaring an incident is really, it's not something we take lightly because we've got SLAs we have to concern ourselves with. If you're working with top secret systems in the US government and you're subject to US CERT, you've got 1 hour to let US CERT know that, hey, we have an incident. Okay, now with prevention, okay, so how do we notice something, how do we stop it from spreading, for example, in our environment? So those are our tools. We can install the sensor on these types of resources, ATMs, medical devices, servers, physical, cloud, a whole bunch of stuff. And again, you want to think of the sensor, it's an agent that acts like a video camera. And we can integrate it with other network security devices. One of my favorite is Palo Alto and FireEye, along with your SIM systems like Splunk and Logarithm, ArcSight, and so on. Okay, so we install the sensor. We have a server. This is an on-prem server. Okay, so here's the architecture. So we have our server. This is CentOS. Okay, we install the sensors. The sensors or the endpoints start gathering up activity. It sends it over to the server every few minutes. It says, hey, here's the activity. When I talk about activity, it's saying, here's what's happening. This executable's running. This file was modified. Something on this system made a network connection. The registry was modified. We can see all that activity. It reports it over to the server. The server then says, hey, cloud, every 1 hour and every 24 hours and on demand, says, hey, cloud, we didn't know about this. And the cloud says, you know what, here's what we know. And then we as administrators can make a decision. And it keeps doing that all day, every few minutes. Okay, so the activities. These are the activities: executions, network connections, registry modifications, and file modifications. So let me give you a quick example of something that's benign. So when I got hired on to VMware, one of the things that they wanted me to do was to record a video, and I did. It was of this class, my favorite. I've been teaching for 21 years, my favorite class of all time to teach. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second. So they didn't give me Camtasia to record my system. So App Control blocked me. I had to put in permission to get Camtasia so I could start my recording. So then they gave me permission. Watch this. Watch what the endpoint does with EDR. I went out to the internet to download the Camtasia software. It recorded that, okay? I ran Camtasia, the file executed. It recorded that. Now, what's interesting about this one, anytime there's an executable and it's run, a copy of that executable is stored in a database, so we can download it, we can do some reverse engineering. I'll show you that in just a second. It added files to my system. It made some registry changes. It recorded all of that. That's benign. Here's an example though. A user opens up Outlook. Okay, so user opens up Outlook. They download Word. Okay, word runs. So then it runs a script or some type of executable. We're keeping track of that. That executable, that malware, makes some file modifications, creates a backdoor, perhaps a run key in the registry, and then goes out and communicates with the command and control server. We keep track of all of that. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the moment of compromise. Let me make sure my demo system is not going to time out on me. Good. All right, so let's talk about the deconstruction, the moment of compromise. If you're not using enterprise EDR, Carbon Black product, a user can visit a website to get exploited. They can download something from their email, get exploited. Oh, look at this neat USB drive that happens to be in the parking lot. Let me plug this in. They could be exploited this way. Now, if we're using signature-based antivirus, it probably won't be detected for a while. Look at this. Okay, so signature-based antivirus, you may see the spawning of this payload here. Here, social engineering, you won't see it until a code injection happens. Or even physical media, won't even tell, can't even tell. But with Carbon Black, oh no, we see all of this. Okay, we see all of this. Everything that's happening on the system is a video camera. So let me show you a demo. There's a lot of ways that we can view what's happening in our environment, okay? So this is what we call our heads-up display. Here, our head, this is our console. We can quickly see, like, you know, are the sensors online? Are they communicating with us and so on? We have these we call the threat intelligence feeds. We work with our own Carbon Black. Everything at the top is almost all Carbon Black. We also work with the National Vulnerability Database, third party, to find out, you know, what the threat landscape is. We work with these companies and more. So we've got Alienware, we've got Emmet. Okay, all we have to do is enable it. SAND, Threat Exchange, a whole bunch of other ones. We can even create our own, purchase our own as well. One of my favorites is the MITRE. Okay, so MITRE, the attack framework. Okay, so what this does, it looks at all the incoming traffic from the endpoint and says, okay, let me tag what appears to be suspicious. Okay, so this looks at moving traffic. What I want to show you is we set up something called a watch list. I think you guys are gonna like this. Now, what a watch list is, it's a cron job that looks for certain things that we want to make sure are not in our environment, right? Here's one of them. You see where it says, who's making network connections to China or to Russia? And look at this, you guys. This is a class. You're going to want to come to it. Okay? We've got some hits here. Okay? We have some hits here. So there was a network connection to Russia or China. Let me choose this one. And look at this. Now, would this make you nervous? Creating an FTP connection to either Russia or China. I would declare this an incident and let's get hot on it. So I'm going to open this up to get more information about what in the world is this FTP doing. So there was something that launched from the command prompt. Look at that. So let me go and bring this down. So the command prompt was used to launch FTP. You can see that they're going to China from this server as this user, and there's going to be a whole lot more, you guys. There's the MD5, and then down here, there was a network connection. Here's where things get neat. You guys ready? If I scroll down here at the bottom, there's more info. You see where it says, here's the IP address and the domain name they were connected to in China. I'm going to tag that and put it in an investigation so I can examine everything from one spot. Okay, maybe even testify in court. That's not it. There's a whole lot more. Let's take a look at that other FTP. Okay, those of you guys who've been in incident responding, we know this one. So this looks like the command prompt. Well, why is it named sethc.exe? Okay, so I'll be like, you know what? This is very suspicious. Let me scroll down, and I'm going to add this to my investigation, especially FTP, those two. I'll show you what I'm going to do with the investigation in just a moment. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the original one. I'm going to click this command prompt, the parent, and there tells the story. Okay, what we did with this course is this was an actual attack from a real company. They scrubbed out that organization's personal information and turned it into a class. So something terrible is happening. Our job in that class is to figure out what's going on. This is our incident response, and it kind of gives it away right here. See that? Click through all of these. Look at that. So we have some work to do, but it's fun. I think the reason why I like this product in this class is because maybe it appeals to my nosy nature, but you can actually see what was typed at the command prompt on each one of these. Xcopy, here's what was typed in at the command prompt. Okay. There is something specific going on. So this is from a watch list. We receive it, it runs every 10 minutes, but this is my favorite. I like to be proactive, not wait until I get a hit or get an alert. I like to go out there and sift through the data. You guys, look at this. And I'm going to give you about a few seconds to tell me what's wrong with this. Okay, so we're sifting through a whole bunch of stuff that's happening in the environment over the last all time. Okay. All right, there's this one. All right, so you guys look closely. Here's Adobe Updater. Look at this. So somebody launched Internet Explorer, or they launched Windows, they launched Chrome, and I'm going to scroll down just a bit, and I'm going to let you guys see this. There we go. They launched Chrome, and then they went on the internet and they clicked on this. If you guys see that, what's wrong with this? The user probably didn't even notice, especially if they were running Windows machine, right? Because Windows hides known file types, right? So they thought they were downloading the report.pdf, but it's report.pdf.exe, which then launched this Adobe Updater, which caused all kind of problems in our environment. So your job is to figure out what's happening. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just real quick, because I still have one more product I want to show you. I'm going to tag this into my investigation. Now, what's neat about the investigation, and that's over here, it allows me to see everything I put together from one pane, one window. And then what I can do is if I need to take it up to my higher ups or testify in court, you see where I can put the timeline in a PNG, nice pretty picture, because I have an 80-year-old relative that loves jury duty. He doesn't even own a computer. He loves to go socialize. So we need pretty pictures of what's happening. We can also export the timeline into a CSV. So those two products that I showed you are proactive and reactive on-prem, okay? We have on-prem products. You're like, Ruth, do you have something for the cloud? In fact, we do. Okay, so let's talk about our cloud product. Endpoint Standard. Endpoint Standard is what we call our next generation antivirus, okay? So here's what it looks like, okay? Notice what's missing is that we don't have an on-prem server. Everything goes to the cloud. All we need to do is install that agent, what we call a sensor, on the endpoint, and we can do everything that we do on-prem and then some. Okay. So let me show you what this looks like. Here's our Endpoint standard cloud product. Isn't that pretty? You see where it reads here in the upper right-hand corner, I've got my threat report. So anytime anything new is discovered, we show it here. We've got our alerts. We can do our investigation. But I want to start here just real quick. Notice we have our policies. Again, all of this is in the cloud. The only thing that's not in the cloud is probably your endpoint. I can create a new policy. In this case, we call it blue team. And what's going to be prevented? You see where it says here, when you see known malware in the environment, if it's running, terminate it. If something's on the banned list, terminate it. If there's something that's unknown, like your 0 days, terminate it. Okay? If it's adware or potentially unwanted application, terminate it. Or we don't have to be that strict, okay? Or even if it's suspected malware, terminate it. What about specific scripts, terminate it. Okay, so we can add stuff here. We can add stuff here. Do we want certain applications to run or not? Okay. So now let's just say that there happens to be what we think is potentially unwanted program and so on. We can do an investigation. Look at this. I'll put in process name as chrome.exe. Just about done here. Set this to 30 days. All right, look at this. So it's telling me that Chrome usually isn't an issue, but Chrome made a network connection. Okay, now you guys ready? I am so happy with what they did in the cloud. Look at this. We have the same thing that we have a little bit of app control and we have a little bit of EDR that we had on-prem. We put those two together and we have this beautiful cloud product. Okay. So we can find out what this process is. If we don't like it, we can add it to the banned list, request and upload so we can do our own reverse engineering, delete the application off of all the users' machines, or add it to the approved list so it doesn't keep showing up as an alert. But look at this, I can find it in VirusTotal. And it says, no, there's no other security vendors have flagged this as malicious. So it's probably okay. Okay, now there's more. Little bit more. You see where it made a network connection? Now we have this option down here to go live. That is worth its weight in gold. What happens is this. If there's something I'm like, I want to connect to that machine, connect to that endpoint, but I don't want to get up, right? Too busy eating. I want to go to that machine remotely. That's this. You see that go live? I can connect to that remote shell remotely. Okay. Okay, so there's our investigate. I'm going to go back to alerts and let's see if there's any alerts in the last month. Oh, there it is. Now you guys look at this. So it says here an application invoked another application. There's a few things I can do here. It tells me why it flagged those. What are some of your next steps in regards to remediation? Okay. I can delete it again off the endpoint, and then I can connect to it remotely. Okay. There's our options here. Now, we also have the malware removal, cloud analysis, any recommendations, and more. But I do want to go back to this investigate, because there's something neat I do want to show you. Okay, 1 second while it's thinking. You can see I've been pretty busy in here. Now I can export this information out. It's going to show me a notification up here for downloads. Okay. All right, now there's one more thing I want to show you. And that is this. There we go. So if I come down here to inventory, these are my endpoints. They're Summit and Resort and so on, where we install the software on it. Okay. Okay. We also, so we have Endpoint Standard, and then we have Endpoint EDR, which is another product that we have for major incident response. Okay. And it looks very similar to this one. So let me go ahead and bring this back up. Very similar. Okay. So last thing here, it tells me I've got 4 endpoints. I've got 4 alerts. I can go in and do a deeper dive. How much malware was prevented, the top alerted applications, and the top alerted assets. Okay, and this information is shown to me almost real time. So thank you for attending the course. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much, Ruth. And as she mentioned, if you have questions, please do take a moment to type them into the questions box. We'll get to those shortly. And if anybody's interested in the materials presented in this webinar, or if you have questions regarding available course offerings, please contact your local New Horizons Center for further information. You can log on to newhorizons.com and do a zip code search and find the center nearest you. You can also check out our webinar schedule, which is also up to date on our website, newhorizons.com. Just click on the webinars link to view the full schedule and register for any upcoming sessions. And as a friendly reminder, we will be sending out the recording link to today's webinar later today. So I do have some questions here, and folks, do feel free to, we have time, so do feel free to submit some more. First question is, does app control slow things down?
You know what, a couple of things. The sensor is only like this very small. The users don't even know it's there. And I'll get to you, I'm taking the scenic route with this question. They don't even know it's there. We can make it so that they cannot remove it. Does app control slow things down? It does not, because it gathers the hashes of each of the applications and so on. So no, very minimal. In fact, as it's sending the data over from the endpoint to the server, it's less than 1K of bandwidth that's being used.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And then this is really interesting. Where do we get started to implement it?
Oh man, you can contact VMware. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, you guys. There's so much more. I could sit here and talk to you for hours, and I do in class. If you want to know more about it, you can go to VMware.com and do a search for Carbon Black. Absolutely.
And can different rules be set for different people or roles?
Oh yes. You know what? And that's what I got upset when I was tasked with installing Camtasia. I was blocked. I was like, do they know who I am? Apparently they did know who I am. That's why I was blocked. But we can set up something called a trusted users. Let me see if I can show it to you guys real quick for the rules. All right. I'm going to bring this back over. Okay, so within my rules, hopefully it didn't time out on me. I'm going to go into soft rules. So you want your policies to be broad. So if you worked with Windows, you know how you have the default domain policy that's kind of broad, but then you go in and set up OUs and so on. You want to think of these policies as like the default domain policy, like a common control. And then you set up rules to allow us to tweak this. Now, one of the rules is users. You see that? You see where we can add a trusted user or group. So yes.
And do we set up our own watch lists, or do they come from Carbon Black, or both?
Both. And okay, I'm gonna give you guys some good news. There's so many ways we can set up watch lists. So let me go here. A few things. Let me bring this back over. Now, with the watch list, I think you're going to like this answer. There are a few that are here by default. Okay. We can create our own, which we show you how to do it in the classes. However, we do have a Carbon Black community. Make sure you join the Carbon Black user exchange. Okay. Want to join that. On there, there's a whole bunch of really good watch lists that you can download. We call it the watch list community. Okay. And there's also companies out there that sell their watch list too. So 4 different ways. We have the built-in, create your own, go to our Carbon Black community. There's companies out there like a Threat Quotient that creates watch lists and so on. Yes.
All right. It seems like Carbon Black in the cloud would be more secure than using local servers. Is that true?
Yes and no. I find that my customers here, they happen to be in Western Europe or North America, some South America, they're like, fine, let's go to the cloud. But I found that my EMEA, like Saudi Arabia, some of my clients over there, they're like, no, we're not going to the cloud. We want something on-prem. Now, here's the good news. If you're going to do this on-prem, we have the ability to put it behind a proxy. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question.
And is there risk in requesting an upload of a suspected malicious item?
I'm so glad you said that. Let me show you guys something. I'm going to go to binary. And what's a good one that I can grab? This one here. And yes, you see where it gives me the option here to, oh, that's why. There's a thing here, and it usually shows up right about, oh, there it is. It usually shows up, I can download this to do some reverse engineering, but you're right, are we downloading the virus and then it'll escape? So, yeah, that's not a good look there. But there it is. What I do is I put it on something called a sheep dip computer, which is a lockdown, not connected to the internet, not connected to the network, virtual machine. You're not going to escape malware type of system. So yes, there are some risks. Do not download it onto your system. You're going to want to download it on a locked down system. I use something called Ollie Debug to help me reverse engineer malware.
That sounds pretty important, making sure that's locked down. So thank you. Yeah. I just have one more question. So before I ask it, I want to remind folks, if you have any questions, please do feel free to type them in. The last one I have here is, what level of IT pro is needed to manage this?
Come to class. So I would say I would say the minimum level that you would need to come to class, because we go deep, you guys are going to love it, is, know what a port is, know what networking is, know what a hash is, again, know what port 443 is, have I guess a sense of what malware is. Other than that, everything else you learn in class.
Great, thank you. And thank you. That's a great reminder that if you do have questions, do feel free to reach out to New Horizons and we can help you get placed in a spot that's good for you. Well, thank you, Ruth. It looks like we don't have any further questions, but I really do appreciate your time. It was really valuable, really interesting. I learned a lot myself. I always like to see that. I just want to thank you for joining us and thank you for your time today. It was wonderful.
Thank you.